Hello, Pacific Coast Watchers. This is Rich from the Pacific Coast Watchers Intelligence Brief, and we're gonna go ahead and have our first long form video. So it's something I hope to do every week. I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be able to pull that off, but we're definitely going to give it a try. Please remember to like this post. Also, this will be going up on the Pacific Coast Watchers YouTube channel. So please go there, like it, and share it with your friends. If you're seeing this and are not a member, please feel free to find us at Pacific Coast Watchers on Facebook. It's a group. Hit join, answer a few questions, and we'll get you in. The group features daily news updates from around the world on things that are going on in Southeast Asia related to the CCP, related to Allied and Chinese buildups, and several other items on there. And it also opens a way for a discussion on the articles, be able to ask questions, and also just go ahead and provide your thoughts. So tonight we're going to talk about the challenges the CCP is going to face in trying to conduct an amphibious landing in Taiwan. This is a topic that I get a lot of questions about. There's a lot of myths and a lot of thoughts out there. Things like the CCP is going to use all its cargo ships in order to land troops. And there's some truth to that, but there's a lot more that goes into an amphibious assault where that's not entirely feasible. But we'll get into that a little bit more here in just a second. So let's get on with the show. All right. So one thing that should be known is amphibious operations are the most difficult to achieve. There's so many factors that go into it. The weather, the compactness of the beach, whether the beach can handle tanks and armor or not. How are you going to deal with supplies? Of course, the enemy has a vote. What are the defenses like? And the United States first tried this in Guadalcanal. And Guadalcanal ended in victory, but it wasn't an easy one by any stretch. The troops were left with little supplies. And the cause of this really turned into the fact of poor cargo handling. When the transports were loaded, there was a longshoreman strike. So everything was loaded by the same Marines that were going to do the landing, by the 2nd Marine Division. Supply management was an issue, getting the right stuff to the right place on the beach. And then, of course, the transports needed to leave pretty quickly. Now, this is a picture of the supply situation on Red Beach on Guadalcanal. And as you can see, there's just stuff everywhere. Imagine trying to sift through all that to try to find a can of beans for dinner or ammunition for your rifle. Most of the things were packed in cardboard boxes. So sitting on the beach, dealing with the tides, you had boxes getting wet from that. You had boxes getting wet from the rain. There was no protection for anything. And as a result, a lot of the supplies that came onshore were ruined. And like I said, this just gets into good supply management, which is something that we're going to talk about quite a bit here when it comes to the CCP landings. Now, getting to the Taiwan landings, one thing that needs to be understood is surprise isn't possible. Frankly, you have too many troops, too many tanks, too much supplies that have to be loaded on ports that are close to Taiwan, that they're going to be spotted. Now, whether they're going to be spotted by a Chinese netizen, it's going to be spotted by satellite. You look at some of the footage and satellite photos that are coming out of Ukraine, the Ukraine-Russian war. It's very hard to hide things and to hide things of this scale. These are two pictures from an amphibious assault landing exercise that the Chinese did out of the port of Fujian. And, you can see that, obviously you're going to pick these up as you're staging, and this was just a very small exercise with one transport. The other factor that goes into the other factor that works against the CCP for any sort of strategic surprise is the weather. The currents are good for invasion off of Taiwan during the months of March, April, September, and October. And that's it. The rest of the time, there's too much current in the current is moving too fast in the Taiwan Straits for smaller craft. And you're also looking at monsoon season and typhoon season outside of that. If you look at the weather today, which today is September 3rd here in the U.S., if you look at the map for the typhoons, there's at least 3 that are in the area at this time. Right now, one's impacting Taiwan as we speak. So there's only certain months of the year, plus they have to be able to build up their forces at the ports, which is something that we're going to know. We're going to be able to see that. So, moving on, how would an attack begin? Well, it would begin with missile strikes and commando raids. Now, one thing that you have to remember is that, first off, commando raids will be for sabotage and assassination teams. There's a list of government officials that they are responsible for taking out. And try to decapitate the government right off the bat. Now, when it comes to missiles, I hear an awful lot about this. Oh, we're going to have, hundreds of missiles raining down on Taiwan. Now, that's a true statement. It really is. But what we need to keep in mind is that Kiev was struck by 160 missiles in the first 2 days of the war. And it didn't destroy Kiev. I mean, it did its fair share of damage, but they were ready for it. And, so it didn't have as much of an impact as they thought they would. Now, Taiwan also boasts many underground facilities. This is a picture of one of the air bases, and you can see in there the caves. Let me get my cursor over here. You see, this is a hardened aircraft shelter here, and here, and here. And there's a bunch more continuing down the way that I just didn't get in the picture. I wanted to get a close-up of these for you so you could see. So, the Taiwanese are very aware that they're going to get hit by missiles. And they've gone ahead and made several underground facilities over the years for the civilian populace and for the military. There's tunnels underneath a lot of the air bases. There's supposedly, and I don't know if this is true or not, tunnels that go back and forth between certain military installations. I do know on the beaches, there's on some of the beaches, there's underground facilities there as well to be able to fire from. So that's going to make it very difficult for a missile attack to do as much as people think it will, I guess is the best way to put it. The other issue to a missile strike too, and we're seeing this in the Ukraine war as well, is modern air defense. Modern air defense in Ukraine is intercepting drones, it's intercepting missiles that are coming towards Kiev and other parts of the country. And Taiwan boasts a very modern air defense system. And as you can see, a lot of it's mobile. Those trucks in the back are missile launchers. So they can shoot and move and shoot and move. And that way they're not as easy of a target. Now there's fixed facilities as well, but like I said, it's a fairly robust system. So, let's talk about the actual crossing. So the CCP is all loaded up and ready to go in all its transports, and it's going to go and set sail. Okay, so what does it face? It faces issues with submarines. Now, Taiwan only has 4 old submarines. There are plans to build 4 more newer versions. And when I mean old, these things are World War II vintage. Now, a lot of people are pushing back on that. Okay, well, Taiwan's going to build indigenous submarines, but they're going to be inferior to China's subs. Yeah, I have to agree with that. But the catch to this is that the Chinese anti-submarine warfare capabilities aren't the greatest in the world. They're very inexperienced doing it. They've been running a few exercises here recently. But how good is that screen going to be? The other thing is that Taiwan has also announced they're building mini subs, which will carry torpedoes. There's some debate on whether these are going to be manned or unmanned, but the mini subs are going to be great working in close to the shore. And as your transport ship stops and drops landing craft, one of these mini subs could potentially put a torpedo in the side of the ship. The fleet is also going to have to deal with anti-ship missiles. And those can come from a variety of platforms. Up at the top and center there, you have a mobile harpoon launcher. Down below, you have one of the Taiwanese corvettes that's armed with harpoons. The center picture there of the aircraft with the missiles, those are Harpoon anti-ship missiles from the Air Force. So they're going to have to contend with all of that, with all of that capability. Now, yeah, I know the argument's going to come up about air superiority. The Chinese are not going to have air superiority right away. I do believe that it really is a matter of time, and they probably will get it. But that just depends on how many planes Taiwan acquires between then and now, and what kind of systems. So you may have, you may have the air component otherwise engaged and not doing the anti-ship. Another thing is the drones. They've started their drone program. Their drones are basically a copy of the Predator drones, and they are armed. Although the picture I have up there doesn't show any with hard points. They are armed. So that's and then other type of commercial drones as they get closer to shore. We've seen in the Ukraine how much those have really been a force multiplier. And then, of course, lastly is going to be sea mines. Because this invasion is not going to be a surprise, you can expect the Taiwanese to drop mines out in the path of the approaching fleet. And then the last factor that you have to take into consideration is the U.S. Will the U.S. attack the fleet in the Taiwan Strait while it's trying to make a crossing? Now, is that going to, are we talking attack subs or aircraft carrier groups, And it's a fair question, and nobody knows, and that's the whole point. It's supposed to be ambiguous of whether we're going to be to help that fast. Now, me personally, my own personal opinion on this is no, I don't think we will. Simply because I don't think we'll get involved that early, unfortunately. Yes, we're going to have advance warning of the buildup, but in our political environment, I'm just not sure that we'd go and sink the fleet before it reached the Taiwanese coast. But we shall see. So let's talk about the landing itself. This is a map of this is a map of 2 beaches. Now, there's a total of 14 beaches that you can land on that are suitable for landing according to the Taiwanese government. These two are the best of the two. The rest all have limitations as far as the size of the beach, armored capability, ways off the beach, uh, and things like that. So these are the two. These are the two big beaches that you can expect something to a fleet to make a landing. Jinshan South Beach up in the north, to me, is the most likely. It's the closest to Taipei. Taipei also houses one of the big commercial ports and the big commercial airport, and those are going to come into play here in a bit. It's 251 kilometers from the port of Fujian, where those tanks were in our earlier picture were located. And as you can see, down south, Jelutang Beach is 484 kilometers. And it also passes next to some of the Taiwan-owned islands. So to me, I don't think they would go ahead and do any sort of a landing there, or if they do, some sort of diversionary landing. Simply because passing that close to the islands, it puts you in a crossfire between the main island and the small island out there. But that's not set in stone either. The other issue too is resupply. You want to go and take the shortest route you can, because you're going to have to move a lot of supplies and a lot of cargo. So to me, that makes Jinshan South Beach the more likely of the two. Now, one thing that should be noted is that using all the Chinese amphibious assets, including commercial ships that have reinforced ramps, they can only land somewhere around 35,000 troops without capturing a port. This is a chart here of all the different transports they have, how many troops they can carry, and some other data. You can see that landing craft are going to be a premium. Not that they're that hard to build or produce, but they don't have a lot of them currently. And like I said, you're talking about landing 35,000 troops. Now, that's not taking into account tanks and that kind of thing. In comparison, just for comparison's sake, the Normandy invasion, the Allied invasion of Normandy, landed about 113,000 troops. So, it's a significant difference in the landing capability. And Taiwan has roughly 130,000 army personnel, not counting the reserves. So that's a bad ratio when you stop and think about it, because you're dropping those 35,000 troops. Not all of them are going to be combat troops either. You're going to have service supports, artillery, things like that are going to come on with it. So the Chinese, the transports will have to leave and go back to Fujian in order to get the next wave. And that's going to take at least a day, because it's about a 6-hour sailing time from that northern beach back. So 3 hours back to Fujian, 3 hours back to sail back to the beach, plus the time that it's going to take to actually reload the ship. And then they can't leave right away, because they have to unload all the cargo and supplies to keep that 35,000 on the beach supplied. There's really no other way to do that other than the transports at this point. Landing of supplies also requires a semi-secure beachhead, so they have to get a beachhead, and they have to secure the beachhead. They have to go ahead and land supplies, and then finally the transports can go ahead and make, with loading time, let's just say for sake argument, 12-hour round trip to bring the next 35,000. Now, this does several things. One, the big ships like the LHDs, the Type 075 there, they can't leave because their helicopters and are going to be providing fire support for the beach. Now you're going to have land-based aircraft too, and so forth, but you're going to need those helicopters in order to do things like bring the wounded off the beach, some limited supply deliveries, fire support, observation, things like that. The other thing with the Chinese fleet taking off and going back to Fujian to get the next wave, that's going to expose them, those ships, to more of a threat, because they're going to have to run the gauntlet of the mines again. They're going to have to deal with submarines and all the threats that we talked about on the first crossing, to go back and then come back again through that to drop off another 35,000. The other thing that has to be taken into account to all this is that Taiwan's been expecting and practicing for this invasion for years and years. Beaches are going to have obstacles and mines. The beaches are fortified. They have underground facilities. Like you can see the missile launcher there in the upper left-hand corner. You've got coordinated long-range fires. They already know where they're going to set up at. They already have targets pre-selected and pre-ranged for artillery and missile strikes on the beach. Then, of course, you've also got the drone threat that comes into it again. You're on the beach, you're on your own territory, and drones can be used for observation or to attack, as we've seen in Ukraine on the beach. So these are just some of the ideas, some of the obstacles that they're going to have to deal with, and it's quite overwhelming. And I've said this for a while, and I'm not the only one that said this. The Pentagon, the U.S. military and intelligence communities have all said that the CCP isn't ready for a full-on invasion yet. They simply don't have the transports to be able to do that. Now, if they get a foothold on the beach and are actually able to capture the port in Taipei, then they can start bringing in cargo ships full of troops and tanks and your roll-on, roll-off ships and all that. But just putting on a force of 35,000 and then having to run back for more, and that's going to be 12 plus hours before you can get a second wave to the beach. It's just not feasible. That force, that 35,000, should be defeated pretty easily. Well, easily is relative, but they should be defeated before they make it very far off the beach. And surely in 12 plus hours, the Taiwanese military, even without any U.S. assistance, should be able to absorb that. But we shall see. Lord knows, things get discombobulated when we start talking about jamming. And like I said, there's a whole bunch more we can get into the weeds on. But I just wanted to cover just a basic overview of some of the challenges that they're going to face just to get to the beach. And so I hope this was informative for you. I hope you found value in this. Please leave me your feedback. Let me know how things look, how things sound, whether you like the topic or not. And, in general, what I can do better. I'm definitely not a professional broadcaster, so, I I beg of you to be a little forgiving. But other than that, like I said, feel free to post questions either on YouTube or Facebook, and let's talk about it. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen in this kind of a scenario? Please let me know. And have a great night.